Okay, here we go. This is me starting the podcast. Welcome to episode 5 of the podcast. We can already celebrate 5 episodes. Congratulations, Tyler.
Thank you. Congratulations to you.
How does it feel?
5-episode podcast?
Yeah.
It feels great. I think the reception has been really great, and to see each episode kind of grow with listens. And you figured some stuff out with the drifting issue, is that correct?
Yeah, I really got into it the last time, Game of Thrones. We really had to go into the episode, and then I'm like, what the heck, let's just try this out. Let's play back the actual scene as we're talking, and I realized, for some reason, the video on YouTube is playing way too fast. Not just it's a different frame rate, not like 25 versus 30 frames or something. Significantly faster. And then I played around and I realized it's 4% faster on YouTube. And I wonder if that's intentional. Like YouTube decided we're just going to play videos faster to keep people more engaged. They just figured out somehow, in terms of retention rates of the audience, that might work better. That's what I'm wondering. Is it a conspiracy?
This is a conspiracy podcast. It's like the new Serial, but we're trying to solve this drifting issue. But you solved it.
I did. I sped up the scenes, so everything else is at normal time, and then when we go into the actual scene, we talk about it, what we see, and then what we play back in the actual podcast is different by 4%.
And we also are recording this. We record it the day after usually we post the previous episode, so the episodes always go up Sunday at midnight, Pacific Standard Time, and then we have like a day or so of reactions that we will address. And this week we actually got one as we're recording here from Larry about the Game of Thrones episode, who says the visual clue is his reaction to missing. The first one was more of a humph, I'll get him next time. Then on the second one, he looks away just before he fires and then smiles after he fires. That is certainly a I missed on purpose reaction.
Nice catch.
So
I have to look at it
yeah.
to make sure that's what's going on. But Larry, you're probably right, and that would be a visual clue to tell us he is doing something. It's a character choice.
Yeah, good call, because I totally forgot that, and he's totally right. And I had that feeling from it, but I forgot there's very clear indication that he is intentionally kind of horsing about. And there's no way he'd miss that first shot. He's like 20 feet away. But anyways, that's for an episode we're trying to get away from in energy on this one.
Yeah, I was just how I'm going to respond to that, because I disagree. But anyway, moving on.
Sven will share his thoughts on Patreon.
Sounds
so
good.
Get on the feed there and he'll have his reaction. But anyway, so Sven, do you want to talk about the epic editing challenge that you're doing?
I do.
You're going to announce the winner before this episode airs, but you want to talk about the process a little bit.
Yes, thanks for asking. We're doing the epic editing challenge, and that is started about a month ago, where we released some footage from 2 different scenes, and we, as Chris Trorini from Chris Coart, that's another YouTube channel, and myself, we both picked a scene of projects we worked on in the past, gave you the footage, and then you had a month time to cut a scene the way that you see it. So make a story out of it, entertain us. Turns out we got back 750 scenes, and I only really have basically 10 days to watch everything. I've been looking at these scenes and trying to find a winner, and it's been eye-opening and a great experience, actually, for me personally, to look at a scene that I cut many, many years ago and see different variations of it. And I do think I have at least 2 that I feel really, really strong. They have a perfect score so far. I still have to see a couple hundred more, and then Chris and I are going to get together, and he's going to pitch me his winners, and I'm going to pitch him mine, and then we're going to come together and pick the final ones. That's where we are.
Wow. Let me just get your reaction now that the contest is closed. But I thought about submitting one myself just to see how well I would fare. But what I wanted to submit, and maybe you can tell me if one of the winners did this, was the scene, but throughout the scene, interspersed would be a lot of moments from the greatest edits of all time. 2001 Space Odyssey transition, Lawrence of Arabia, different moments we've talked about on this podcast, because I figure if it's about winning, the best editing, if I just included the best editing, I'd be a shoo-in. How would I have fared?
You would have been disqualified.
Oh, damn it.
Because one of the rules is you cannot use any outside footage. But it sounds like a great idea.
Should we get into today's scene?
Yes. What are we doing, Tyler?
Today we wanted to change pace after exhausting ourselves, gnawing on the first 3 minutes of Game of Thrones Battle of the Bastards and not getting to the battle last week. We decided to do Borat because I think there's a lot from an editing perspective to look at in terms of the editing. It blends a lot of things that you know a lot about and have a lot of cool opinions on, like nonfiction editing, documentary, reality, and stuff like that, and what was really done to kind of shape this narrative. And because we had a little trouble getting an HD clip of Borat, we have one little Borat clip we're going to look at, then we're going to look at one from Brüno. And also, Sacha Baron Cohen's back in the news with Who is America, so it's time to take a look at his work and what a huge part editing plays in that, which is often not celebrated at all.
Absolutely, and we should point out that when Borat came out, what he did was revolutionary at the time. He basically did a remix of the reality show format. It is somewhat produced and scripted, but it feels as if it's the real deal. And that was something completely new, and that's the reason why he became who he is now. I mean, he had a show on HBO prior to that, but that really put him on the map for me.
Well, for sure, yeah. And a lot of his goal, though, was to be off the map, ironically, with a lot, because then he could keep doing his work. And then we saw after Brüno, he had a hard time doing anything again because everyone just knew he was too successful for his own good. And I don't know necessarily that in terms of like modern reality and what can be done just with the availability of modern camera gear and stuff he did, but just a point I would make is there's a difference between direct cinema and cinema verite, and everyone always mistakes that cinema verite means the B-roll, right? It's the footage when you're not shooting interviews, when you're just grabbing footage. It's people call it verite, but it's really, just the B-roll.
Yeah, that would be the B-roll, unless it's a scene. They're covering a scene like a documentary where they're just like watching somebody build something with their bare hands, whatever the moment is, and they don't talk about it, they just do it. That's verite.
Well, the interesting thing is that's what verite is referred to commonly now in editing suites and during production and stuff, but that's not what verite is, because there's a difference. There's direct cinema, which is the goal of the fly-on-the-wall style cinema of the Maysles brothers and stuff like that, where you're really just following something around. Where what verite is it means that the action is happening because a camera is present. So what Sacha Baron Cohen's doing, what you see on Candid Camera, where the action's really only happening because you're creating it around the camera as opposed to going to a protest or an event or something and filming that. That's direct cinema because you're going to the action, where cinema verite means that the event is only happening because a camera is there, so because someone's prompting an interview or something like that. So that's always kind of ironic that people have it backwards now.
That's the original definition of it, is what you're saying, because that's not how I mean,
it's what it is, but yeah, people misuse it, and the way you use it is the way it's used by 99%. That's what I tell students, is like, you can't just constantly be correcting people like I am. Yeah. And saying, you want some verite, editor? You want me to go through the B-roll? It's actually not verite.
It's the Mandela effect.
Yeah, but that's what's interesting is that this idea of causing the drama to happen is very much what Sacha Baron Cohen's doing.
For sure. And this is going to be interesting in the clip with Paula Abdul to really figure out who knows what's going on and who doesn't.
Yeah, well, the first clip's going to be Borat, just to set the tone. But a couple things about Borat. So, I mean, production, there were already lawsuits and problems with it a couple years before it even came out. And they filmed 400 hours of footage. And it's very easy to overlook the amount of manipulation they can go in of getting them comfortable in the camera before he starts going bonkers and making them say crazy stuff and yet stay in the interview. And that's where the editing comes in. You just make it look like he walks in the room and goes crazy. And I would be almost more fascinated to watch it from beginning to end than just to see the crazy stuff, but that's what makes it entertainment. So with Borat, the movie actually starts with him in Kazakhstan with a lot of clearly written, it's like a long single take of him going around just explaining who he is and where he's from, which is incredibly important in setting up the emotional journey of the movie, which is another big part of it that's easy to overlook watching it, but there's a really clear emotional arc in it. So that's all set up, and then this scene we're going to look at now is literally the second one. It's all very, very planned and produced scene, leads to him at the airport, him on a subway, trying to kiss people to greet them, and suddenly that's when this verite hidden camera stuff starts happening, like 4 or 5 minutes into the movie. It's like, whoa, what's going on? And then this second scene is just one with him with the hotel manager, which I just think is funny and kind of gives a good context for the general point we're going to be talking about. So do you want to look at it and share your thoughts, Sven?
For sure, let's do it. So the way we're going to do it, as always, is we have the YouTube clip. So if you're seeing this on Patreon, there should be a link. If you're seeing it anywhere else, hop onto Patreon, search for This Guy Edits, search for the podcast. This is the latest episode. Click the link, and then you can watch along as we are experiencing the scene and analyzing some of the editing.
That's great. You want to take us through it?
Yeah, here we go. In 3, 2...
Welcome to the Wellington Hotel.
So we have an exterior shot of the hotel going inside to the concierge, and he's trying to book a room.
It is $117.13.
We call it 85.
No, we can call it 117.
I think that's a hilarious joke to build it around.
Totally. And we're moving fast here. It's great. So then he goes inside the elevator. He starts unpacking his stuff.
Because he thinks this is the room.
He thinks this is his room, the little elevator.
Hold on. You might want to repack your things. We're going to be moving again shortly.
I will not move to a smaller room.
The concierge is telling him, no, you got to wait. This is not your room.
This is not my room?
This is the elevator. It takes you to the floor where your room is.
This guy fully believes it.
Cutting right away into the room. Now he's by himself. He's trying out the bed. He's all amazed.
Oh, king in the castle, king in the castle.
He's checking out the chair.
I have a chair.
And he's just like playing out the premise.
Big joke at the end to end it with him washing his face in the toilet. Which is, I mean, it's all incredibly insulting. And then shortly after that, ironically, he goes and takes a crap outside the Trump Hotel, which is always wonderful. But what I would just say real quick about that scene, the interesting thing to me is, one, just in terms of writing, like he has incredibly well-written jokes that he's manipulating people into stepping into the punchline for.
Right.
So that idea of, like, the guy says, okay, it's $147, and he's like, spits in his hand, 87. Who knows what he went through to get to the point that he could do that and not lose the guy. Right? To like make him comfortable. And then the elevator thing. I'd love to watch the raw footage someday of this stuff. The cool thing with this scene is how much of this movie is narrative. Like him going around the hotel room, it has the feel, and it adds to the comedy as you feel like the guy is still there in the room watching him because they've set it up that he was, but he's not. And it's just for us. Like he's throwing toilet water in his face, like just for the camera. And that's kind of a fun thing that almost makes it a Cassavetes movie in terms of style. That freshness of like, holy shit, this is really happening. And then when it's not, you don't realize it's created narratively, and it just gives the film like a very fun, specific feel, and it's fun to look at it as a film. That's my spiel.
Awesome. There's a couple of things that I noticed. First of all, we're flying through this. It's super fast. He really just goes for the best jokes and moves on. It doesn't dwell. It's a classical prank, adapting the style of a reality show to tell the story, where he sort of writes certain jokes or certain setups where he entraps whoever he is having a scene with who doesn't know what's happening. And then the comedy comes from their reaction, what they're going to do with it. And then they go into the editing and they just pick the best moments. It's good that you tell me that this is like the second or third scene in the movie. We have like this big setup in Kazakhstan, right? We're flying through this scene. Yep. He doesn't dwell. But what he does in the moment, and I'm sure this is how they shot this, is he does prop comedy. So whatever happens in the moment, I'm sure it's somewhat improvised. So he sees the toilet bowl. He's like, what can I do with that? Let's just explore 3 different jokes with that. And then they'll pick the best one. Same with the chair. Same with the bed. They'll just try certain things. And I'm sure he, as a comedian that is used to improvising, he immediately has ideas of what to do with that, to play out different variations of what the character could be doing.
Yeah, that's the true genius. And I mean, there's moments where you can tell clearly, like he's just going with it in the moment, and those are great, and you can kind of tell the prepared things. And then the other thing, just in like you were saying, like the pacing. Yeah, I mean, this happens in a minute, and it feels like a whole experience, and that's something you've always been great at with in terms of editing documentary, editing reality, is just like that. Let's hone it down and hone it down and hone it down until you're just flying through it and yet having the full experience. But the thing I wanted to ask you is this idea of, we're saying like, oh, guess what? It's edited. Like he's tricking these people. We're going to see in a moment, like there's manipulations of reactions and stuff like that where it's being cut in a certain way, so you get a character reaction that might not fit with that moment. You have some interesting points of view about that in terms of getting to that truth. Like, what is the truth in a documentary? And it's something that's discussed by a lot of people. Errol Morris has an entire book about it. But inherently, like the moment you take a photograph of something, it's no longer a true representation of what's there, and yet using stuff like this to get to a deeper truth.
Right. Well, I subscribe to the philosophy of ecstatic truth. And this comes from Werner Herzog. And basically what that means is you as the storyteller, you see a certain way of how the story needs to be told. And you find the truth in the footage. So you use the footage any way you see fit to bend it to tell the ecstatic truth. Now, that means the truth really comes from how you see it or how you think the characters see it. So if character A reacts in the wrong way, that it doesn't fit the way that you want to tell the story, but you find a way in the editing to still make it work through either Frankenbite, which is basically taking parts of a sentence, putting them back together in a way that a character says something maybe that they never meant to say, but they really mean. For example, some characters have an agenda. They're in front of a camera. They want to present themselves in a certain way. But you want to show the audience what that character really means. Now, you have to decide whether this is ethical or not in the sense of it's just a tool. The question is, how do you use the tool? Do you use it in a way that really truthfully represents those characters, or do you manipulate it in a way that it puts the characters in a different way? For example, I'm going to go big here on this one. On The Apprentice, Donald Trump was being portrayed in a certain way. It was all about power and the admiration of power. And people bought into this idea. There's a scene, the contestants tour his apartment, and there's a gold toilet bowl. And one of the contestants in the footage was like, this is ridiculous. This is so stupid. And then they're like, no, you can't say that. You need to be in admiration of this toilet bowl. They had to recreate this in the editing to make it look as if she was really admiring the toilet bowl. So now you can decide whether that's ethical or not. What I think what Werner Herzog means and what most documentary filmmakers...
Right, and it's important to point out real quick also that The Apprentice is not by any stretch of the imagination a documentary. It's reality, which is...
But there is this relationship between documentary and reality, and one is trying to portray a certain problem in a way that we understand, learn, and maybe act on it, while the other one is trying to entertain us in any shape or form. Borat is kind of in the middle there. He's trying to entertain us, but he's also trying to make us think about certain things.
Yeah, it's easier to do the latter part in the TV series as opposed to a narrative film where he really had to dig in with this and create the emotional arc for the character and journey and really, fake some things. And then his new show, I think, is maybe even building and learning from the stuff he learned in terms of the reception to Borat and Brüno of just designing the moments in a way where it's you're really seeing the soul of who these people are doing this stuff. There's no way they can back out of it and say they were manipulated into doing these things because it's just who they are.
Yeah. Partially it's also just about the reaction shots.
Right.
When do you pause for a reaction, or when do you use that reaction shot that didn't really happen at that moment, but you picked it up later on to create the pause that you need for the joke to work? There's a lot of that in Borat, and I think we can see that even better in the next clip with Brüno, how he uses reactions to really nail those jokes. Before we move on to the next scene, I was just looking back at the scene we just watched. There's very little manipulation in terms of reaction shots or anything. It's just timing. When do you cut and move on to the next thing? Just the ellipsis to create the joke. For example, when they're arguing over the price of the room, the joke ends on the concierge saying it's $118 or whatever. And just by the fact that you move on to the next moment, that makes it funny. That's as far as the editing goes there. Once they're in the elevator, there's very little cutting going on. It's basically just deciding how much you're going to let this dialogue play out as we're staying on this bag and we're realizing, Borat is going to unpack now because he thinks this is his room.
And the greatest example of manipulation in terms of this film, I feel even though we don't have the clip to look at, is the bear scene where they're just driving around with the live bear. They're in an ice cream truck because that's the only truck they can afford. It's playing music. They can't figure out how to turn the music off, yet they have a live bear in the back. And children are just starting to swarm the van, come running up because they want want ice cream, and then, of course, the window falls down, the bear puts its head out of the window and just terrifies the children, and they go running off screaming, and it's a hilarious moment. But rewatching it, I kept waiting for the moment of the bear being in the same shot as the children,
Right.
and it just never happens. There's just a random shot of a bear sticking its head out of a window from inside the van, like it could be anywhere, and yet it's structured so well that it gives you that real experience. And I couldn't believe that they got away with it, honestly, watching it. Maybe it'd be tougher nowadays or something to 12 years later to get away with that, because people are a little more guarded and, and jaded when watching films about these tricks. But they got a bunch of kids to run away from an ice cream truck, and that's all the only shot they had.
Yeah, that's probably
sell that
how they
moment.
directed them. Just run away, basically.
Yeah.
There never was a bear. So do you want to set up Brüno?
Yeah, so then moving on to Brüno, just because we have better HD clips, and we've kind of set up everything we want to talk about, so just to kind of go through this one pretty quickly, and Sven will comment on the things that he's noticing. It is his follow-up film, probably much more difficult to pull off because of the success of Borat, and yet he's kind of infiltrated the celebrity circle, and in this case he's going to get Paula Abdul to sit on human furniture.
Great. So again, this is an activation where he created this environment, and I have a feeling the only person that doesn't know what's going on here is Paula Abdul and her manager, or whoever that is that comes with her.
Right.
They
Covers his
probably
face.
found some reason for her to agree to do the interview, and whatever that is, we don't really know, but they got her to come here to talk about whatever she needs to talk about. And with that, in 3, 2...
Aber wo sind die neuen Teufel?
Keine Sorge.
Okay, we're inside an empty, expensive-looking LA home.
Yeah. This is clearly just a narrative written scene.
Yeah, his German, by the way, is terrible here.
Sie wollen mich ruinieren?
I can barely understand what he's saying. He clearly just learned those lines to get through this moment here. But the other guy is real. He's the real deal. He is German. So Paula
It's like his
Abdul
Kazakh.
shows up. We see a shot of her walking inside, looking outside. She comes in,
A reality star.
and here is the reveal. Here's her reaction to it. And I would say this is real. This is her now dealing with the situation that she's faced with. And she sort of decides she's going to go with it. She's going to
Yeah,
sit
we
on
cut to
one
him
of
already
the...
sitting.
Paula's going
Yeah.
to sit on one of the Mexicans, and he starts his interview talking about humanity and all this stuff.
Helping other people is so vital to my life.
And water.
And her answer is classic.
And the water that I drink.
It's the best scenario you could imagine for her to be saying stuff like this
You give love to other people and you get love back.
with the water and everything. So it makes me think like she might be in on it. I don't know. What do you think?
The water thing makes me think she was either... Something about that moment makes me think that she was... She was talked into just grabbing a glass of water and kind of going along with it, and they structured it with the editing to be whatever it needed to be.
And again, we're moving fast here. So eventually the
It's such a
scene
quick
ends
scene.
with this guy being rolled in who's naked and has food all over his body, and they want to serve food
Sushi.
to Paula, and apparently that's the moment where she's like, I'm out of here.
Right. I guess the point with this scene is you can see how it could be entirely fake. Like this whole thing could be fake, but the way it's cut together, even if her manager, who whatever her handler is in on it, just that guy not wanting to be photographed, to turn that into a moment where you're blurring his face, that just adds to the authenticity of it, whether they had to blur the face or not.
Definitely. Maybe she's in on it. Maybe this is all a setup. But it doesn't really matter for the story or the editing, right? The way
Exactly.
it's told and shot, it feels like a reality show to me.
Very much, yeah. And if you look at this moment at 1:08, we look at the way she's taking the water off of the guy
Okay, let's take a look at that.
That I drink.
and drinking it.
It is
It
extremely,
is.
extremely important for me.
It just very clearly seems like her face and everything seems like she's in on the joke. You know, like she has a little smile on her face, and maybe it's structured by changing his off-camera lines because the camera drifts down when they put that line in. So yeah, it's hard to tell with this, but
It's hard.
amazing.
I think I would assume it was impossible to tell at the moment because it was so radically new.
Yeah.
We weren't as familiar with the format of reality show. We weren't as educated in terms of the tricks of the trade. I would have bought into the scene. I would have said Paula Abdul has no idea what's going on, and she's real.
For sure. And that's the fun, is the suspension of disbelief. I mean, we go see Transformers and we're like, okay, I'm in this. So that's kind of the fun, is you have that going for you anyways. And the first 30 seconds of this scene is set up, and then this entire scene is 1 minute.
It's crazy how fast it is.
Scenes like this are so shocking, and they live with you, and it's amazing that all this was accomplished in 1 minute, and how much more work kind of goes into the setup with this kind of stuff is pretty amazing.
It makes me
well.
think that he had so much gold in the editing room that he just had to make it as tight as possible to just get this film to whatever time it needs to be, 90 minutes or so. I feel like there's probably a 2-hour version of this film that would work just as well. I want to point out all these cutaway reaction shots to the Mexican guys. So when she sits down at 54, we cut to the guy that she's sitting on, and his reaction, clearly he's playing it up for the camera. But the way that this is edited, it's doing the storytelling for us. His reaction tells us how weird and awkward and uncomfortable she is. He's playing it as if this is a real strain on him to have her sitting on, which I think it's probably not.
Right.
And then every time her answer is basically being buttoned with a reaction shot of one of the guys. To just nail the joke. And I think that's really where the editing, where you can learn something. How do you button a joke? How do you give it breath?
Right.
How do you play it off with the reaction of a face?
Yeah, and I wonder how little time she spent in that room, how many cameras were in that room.
It looks like a 2 to 3 camera shoot to me.
Yeah, but I feel like she would, to get her, like it almost serves you to have more, for the deceit.
Right.
Like if you had 7 cameras in there, she would be like, okay, this makes more sense.
Well, good. I think these were cool scenes to really look at some comedy, look at a very innovative style of doing comedy.
Yeah, very editing based in terms of making the jokes work.
Yeah, and talk about concepts of what is ecstatic truth or what is truth per se. When do you really manipulate the story where you take advantage of characters? I think here we're sort of walking the line. It's a close call.
Yeah. If you'd like to continue this conversation with stuff that you notice about it, like we were talking about at the beginning of the episode, please hop on the Patreon page. The link is public, so everyone has access to it. The comment at the beginning of this episode was very helpful. It helped us realize the big thing we were stumped on for the entire Game of Thrones scene, so thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Please do try and play along if you have the opportunity to watch the video on YouTube as well. But having said that, I really tried this out on the previous episode with Game of Thrones. I just went jogging and listened to the episode, and I think it's working, but you tell me. Let us know. Leave a comment.
And if you enjoyed the episode, subscribe to us on iTunes or wherever you're listening to it, and let a friend know.
Thank you to Kurta for the music, and happy editing.
About tweakers. There's no sane zone, so put your head between the speakers. There's no sane zone, so put your head between the speakers.
Yeah, next, let's find an even shorter scene for the next one, because that worked so well this time.
It did, but it also was so...
No, I'm totally kidding. We went down to, we had a 20-minute scene last time. We're like, oh, it's too long. And now we did 1 minute scene.
It's
so
like
I think 30 seconds.
You can't even do anything, and he's done. It's crazy. Okay, I'm turning this off.